How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have All Systems No back with us again, and he can say his name and what he does in the band.
My name is Max Kane, and I play guitar, sometimes keys, and write for All Systems No.
There we go. Well, Max, I want to say it's been like a year and a half or longer. It has to have been.
I was gonna say exactly. I think it's been a year and a half because I did look at the other video in preparation, and I've accumulated more things in my room. So,
Yeah, so that's how you
my
know.
walls are somewhere here.
On at least in my end, everything has completely changed. But that's a story for another time.
Mhm.
I guess tell the people what's been going on. There's a lot that's happening. You got something new coming out, which we're gonna delve into soon. But I guess just tell the people what's been going on since I guess the year and a half thing.
So all systems no is all systems go. We have a full lineup since we last spoke. We had released our previous record, a 5 song EP called Division, in 2018, and we have a new EP coming out in 10 days on January 24th called I/O, also known as Input Output, but it's just written I/O. We put out a single for it called Zenden last month, and we're very very excited about the record.
Well, I gotta ask, how did the reception go? How do you feel like people have taken into your like music and stuff like that? I feel like a lot of your fans, obviously enjoy your music for sure. Or I hope they don't lie to you about it. But I guess like how was the reception of that? I mean, I took a listen to it and I took a listen to the EP a little bit, but how has that been? I guess how have people received it? Do you feel like it's like, man, you guys finally feel like a collective unit, or is it was this all? I guess we'll go into that a little later on, but I guess how has the reception been of the song currently, I guess?
It's been really really good, and you touched on kind of exactly where we're at right now, and I think this is something that happens with all bands or just like all creative endeavors, that
Sure.
when you're starting out, you're definitely going to sound like your influences, or at least your influences are going to be a little bit more well known. But
Sure.
I think especially with this record in particular, we're starting to sound more like All Systems No,
That's
which
great.
is awesome. um, on Division, we had Glenn, our saxophone player, on I think only 2 songs on the EP, but now he's on all of them. So I think that is kind of an integral part now, and it kind of separates us from the pack a bit. But like we've also kind of just been, like you said, collectively as a unit, writing music together, and it sounds more like something unique to us.
Yeah, that was kind of like my question without like jumping the gun a little bit, but I was like, okay, so now you have all these new members, like have they all, I guess they all have had that creative input in the new record, I would assume, because I know the first record was not, I feel like it was a little bit more, everything was kind of like out there, and like you were saying, more so you were playing off your influences and then kind of like bringing it all together. But now I feel like with this record, it feels everything's a little bit more like everybody's coming together, and then this is all systems no in the middle where you all collectively meet.
That is exactly right. For better or worse, the first record was, and I think this is why kind of like holds a special place in my heart, because I think the longevity of the band kind of hinged on the record, because it was just a drummer and I at the time, and we wrote kind of everything piecemeal. And so Marcelo had the Sisyphean task of basically putting vocals on top of unmoving instrumentals. So he'd be like, "Oh, this would be great if this part was longer or shorter," and we're like, "Sorry, that's how we recorded it. You're gonna have to do it." But he was able to make it work, and it sounds really, really, really natural, especially when you listen to it. With input output, we have everything was kind of written from the ground up, so there's
Sure.
definitely more input from everybody. So I could come into the rehearsal space with the song idea, and then Marcelo could be like, "Hey, this part needs to breathe a little bit more. Let this be more of like a pre-chorus. Let this build." And it's like, "Yeah, we can absolutely bounce ideas off of each other and write collectively." And we recorded everything live on
Awesome.
the record, and I think that sort of kind of collective bouncing back of energies really definitely shows on input output.
Which is good because I feel like there's, like I said, there's a little bit more it just feels a little bit more natural to me, where like everything kind of like the first record was just like, okay, I could see where they were going with it, and whether or not it transpired to that destination or not is, I think up to anybody's discretion upon music. But I felt like with some of the songs that I had listened to off the new EP, that I was like, wow, everything just feels like there's just a little bit more collectiveness where everybody kind of like talks. So I guess my next question would be like, how much did it change? Like how, like you're doing it live, obviously. So like how much of it changed throughout where you're like stopped and you're just like, ooh, maybe we should do this instead. Maybe we should swap this out. Was there like kind of a skeleton, and then did it really shift perspectives, or did everybody kind of like keep it reined in, I guess?
So it was definitely the most I've collaborated ever, I think, personally
Mm-hmm.
on a record. Um, we had demos. We had really really rough demos of songs that we had recorded ourselves in the rehearsal space. So
Sure.
there have been instances where I would bring in, for example, the track two, "The Fall." That was basically written in an afternoon, um, or at least the guitar parts were. And when I brought it to the drummer, and it just kind of like, we had the rough skeleton, and then everyone kind of added their own piece, and so on and so forth. I also just want to say that with Input Output, we were fortunate enough to collaborate with multiple producers. So
Oh, cool.
we had Lino Sistu, who's a friend of our bass players, who did pre-production with us. But then through an amazing amount of circumstance and Kevin Bacon levels of degrees of separation, we were able to work with Eric Palmquist, who's
Oh,
worked on like Thrice and Sean
yeah.
and mixed all these incredible records. And we reached out to him, and he got back to us, and we did some pre-production with him. And he executive produced the record, whereas Michael Craver, who works with him, was kind of in the trenches with us, who was like day to day, engineering and producing stuff. And the three of them really kind of brought out the best in us. And a lot of it was like, stuff. It's nice to have those extra sets of ears in the room, because you want to, when you're kind of stubborn like me, songwriter. Every song is so important to you that you're unable to see the forest from the trees. And so
Sure.
whether it's Eric or Michael or Lino, they're just like, no, 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 you need to get rid of this part, trim the fat, kind of really kind of condense everything. But at the same time, there were some instances where we were challenged, and we kind of wanted to, it's a give and take where you're challenged by the producers, and you're just like, where we can do what they're doing, or what they're suggesting, and it
Mm-hmm.
works really really well. But other times where it's just like, no, we know that this works for All Systems No, and we just kind of continue to do that.
That's awesome. I'm glad that the producers really kind of like, put their effort into it, because I feel like as of recently, just within probably the past like 5 years, I feel like producers almost feel that like I am the next member of the band, but not really for that time period of like recording. And I feel like that kind of brings out a lot of really great aspects of like a lot of the records that I listened to last year, and I imagine some that will come out this year. But it's always cool to see somebody like really kind of dig in and like be like, okay, like really actively have you think about something and be like, wow, okay, maybe we should change this, or like look at it like you said from a fresh perspective. And I think it really kind of changes up like the songs and how they're written, and how they're arranged and stuff like that. So I guess, which one did you have the most fun time like starting out? Like you said, you had the pre-pro stuff. Like which one did you have the most fun like working on to like finally get to the like the finalized product where you're like, wow, this is like, this started from this and then came to here?
Oh wow. So working with the producer, they're definitely like the X factor, but also no amount of rehearsal can kind of prepare you for studio magic. And I say studio magic in the sense that we like, if anything, All Systems No is that we're prepared, or at least we like to think we are, where we're really
I know that
prepared.
feeling.
We do our homework, and we get into the studio, and we kill it tracking. But then the producer would be like, "Hey, let's try this sort of thing," just like, "Oh, let's try doing this, or you do less of that. Drums do more of this, bass do more of this sort of thing. Why don't we let guitar hang back? And so there was a lot of magic that happened in the studio that we could never have anticipated with the amount of pre-production that we did. There was
Sure.
on our last track, Ariel, there is a layered vocal thing that Marcelo does that did not come about until we were in the studio listening to that. And
Oh, that's cool.
there's kind of like happy accidents and happy mistakes, like effects pedal wise that happen
Sure.
in the studio too, and just like leave it in. That's great. And since we were recording live too, there were instances where James was feeling confident and warmed up, and he would do like a fill that he didn't, he wouldn't normally play live, but it made the record, and now he does it live. And myself and Edwin, our bass player, would play off of that, and then you have Glenn come in, and same thing. We're just like, oh, happy accidents with effects, because our saxophone player runs his saxophone through effects, and
Oh, that's
the
sick.
thing is, like, since it's not one-to-one perfect tracking, since it's a microphone into the sax going through the
Sure.
pedals, sometimes it comes a little bit off of like the dry of like the dry original signal, but it sounds really really cool, and just like leave that in. So there's a lot of really cool things that happen in the studio that are complete, that you can't prepare yourself for, but you kind of have to leave yourself open to it. And um, I think that's my favorite part of being in the studio, because like you're as prepared as you can be, but you also never know what the end product will be, because like there are harmonies that Marcelo did that weren't planned before, and then there's some stuff that was planned before and got left out, and the songs are all better for it.
I think that's what makes it cool, and I always like whenever I have the chance to like ask somebody about it, because I don't always get an opportunity to have like, I do have bands on that have releases coming up or whatever, but I feel like some people like prefer to keep that like a trade secret. Like we're not gonna tell you, you're gonna have to figure it out for yourself. But I also feel like I respect that a lot, because I feel like the track could have been complete shit, and then they could have made it amazing, and then I would have been like, okay, I get it why you didn't want to talk about it earlier and why it sounds so much better now. But I think it's also cool to see that like progression of like, you're musicians, like you can't imagine it just to be like 100% perfect, like pre-pro everything, and then just kind of like, well, we're just going to keep the pre-pro exactly the same way. Like, everybody plays it differently, and I think that's what makes it unique to me on a record, where you can like kind of like ad lib and do different things, because one take could be that like middle of the road kind of thing, and then one take could be like far right, the other one could be like far left. But I think it makes it all the more interesting when you can kind of have like a basis of where like it started and then where it went, like going further, and if it wind up making it onto the record too, I guess too.
Exactly. I don't think I want to do any more records without working with a producer, or at least someone that can kind of push us a little bit
Sure.
more, because it was great, because we would nail what we would thought would be an amazing take, and Michael in the control room would just be like, do it one more time. It's like it's like we have the take we want, but if you can do better than that, let's go for it. And that's exactly what would happen. Like we would kill it on the take, and it's like, oh, this is it, this is the one, and then Michael would be like, no 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 no, the next one's gonna be it, trust me. And it was.
I think it's also the honest push, like if you're a good producer, you can get more out of the person that's like creating the music. Like you can feel that. I feel like when you have a good producer that can feel that out, like feel the energy of the room. I think I feel like a lot of producers don't get enough credit when they're on these records and stuff like that, where it's like, if you didn't allow them to kind of like push you in a nice way to do better, like imagine how many records would kind of like maybe still be good but not hit that like next tier up. Like that's what I think about. Like I've never been in the studio before, but I would imagine that's how it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. And a huge part of it, at least for me, is that it's almost like marriage counseling, like therapy, in a way. Because at least speaking for myself, I have a very strong personality in the band, and some of us, all, we all have strong personalities dealing with each other, and I think
Sure.
we've grown to know each other so well that it helps to have someone who doesn't know us as well to kind of be like, hey, actually, Max, you're wrong this time. Marcelo is right, and then vice versa, sort of thing. And so just like there, because like we do that. We're kind of a self-governing body in that regard.
Yeah.
But James, who I've known for the longest time, and we've jammed for the longest time, initially, like one thing I'll absolutely say about music is that music is probably more intimate than any sort of romantic relationship I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, I feel that.
And
Yeah.
so you're kind of laying your soul bare, and you're kind of outputting like this really really creative thing to the world, and you don't know if like people are going to like it, but you know that it came from you. And so like Marcel and I will like butt heads about like vocal lines and stuff, and then I'll get pissed or someone gets pissed, and then James will be like, just he's known me the longest time, just like just give Max a day, just let him sleep on it. And then the next day I'll go into the rehearsal space and be like, yeah, you guys were right, sorry. So it helps to have that producer kind of be the objective party in that regard as well.
He's like the what's the word? I just lost it. He's like the
The mediator.
chaperone. He's like the
Yeah,
chaperone.
exactly. That's even better.
He's the chaperone of like the musical field trip. Yeah, that's how I see it as. I feel like if you've got a good chaperone, then your time is going to be well spent. But the question I have next, Max, is I guess which one is your favorite that you worked on in the studio? I feel like you kind of alluded to it, but I want to kind of get the direct answer. And then what's
Ooh,
one you're excited to play live? I imagine you haven't played any of them live, maybe out excluding the single, obviously, but
oh no, so the one thing I will say about All Systems No is that if you come to our shows, you're gonna see the new material before you hear it on the records. Because like
I don't know.
having like
Sometimes that's like that's like sacred ground until the album comes out. Like once the release comes out, then it's like, oh, it's free game. But I like that approach where you're just like, we're just gonna do it. Like why not?
right, and I think it's really interesting because like you look at like stand-up comedians and how they'll workshop their material in front of
Sure.
like
Yeah.
smaller rooms. And I think that definitely benefits us because we can kind of get like immediate feedback. So it's like, hey, this is a new song we're going to play off of, something that we're working on. And when you're standing on stage, you can see how like the audience would react to different parts of the songs, and so you can be like, oh, maybe that part doesn't work as well as I thought it did. And other parts would be like, wow, this is the audience is like having an amazing amazing reaction to it.
Yeah.
I think as we begin to build our catalog, our discography, we'll be able to kind of maybe kind of play some songs a little bit more closer to the chest, but at the same time, I really like workshopping it in front of live audiences. And I think the sound has been better for that too, because there have been times where just like there's almost kind of like in the song "The Fall."
Mhm.
There, in the second verse, originally I was playing a guitar part that was basically someone described as like Slayer like, but very kind of like heavy. It was a heavy like guitar riff, and then someone was just like, oh yeah, no, the second verse doesn't match up with the first verse, and I'm like, oh, I can see where you're coming from. So now that riff became more of like a block party riff,
Ah.
as
Okay.
Michael describes it in the studio. So it's more of a block party riff over Slayer. Not that I don't like heavy things, but I think it fits the song a little bit more. To answer your question directly, I'll say that it's hard because I loved working on all of those songs, but I
Sure.
will say
Yeah.
that the two songs I feel like that benefited the most from the studio time were Zen, the title track, and Ariel, the closing track. And I think that's because Marcelo really killed it vocally with his performances and takes, and Michael really, really, really pushed him to nail some harmonies and like layered vocal stuff. And especially with Zen, Zen is a nice, if I'm gonna be an artiste, if you listen to all of Division and then you immediately start our second record, the last song of Division flows really, really well into Zen, and I
Oh,
think
that's
Zen
sick.
is kind of like a sonic bridge between both records. Because it starts off sounding like, oh, hey, this is the same band I just listened to, but then takes an immediate right turn into like how we've grown and evolved and stuff. And a lot of that was, the stuff that happened at the studio, Marcelo just being pushed vocally, and then Ariel is this whole guitar orchestra thing. There are multiple guitar parts, multiple kind of like movements, and then it's kind of like it has a nice footnote where it just like there's like this huge crescendo, and it's very kind of like the Stairway to Heaven sort of like constant build, and I think the vocal performance at the end really does that. Now there's a supernatural song that I like playing, and that's track 3, Dados, and
Oh, okay.
I like playing that song live a lot. But I will say, in some weird way, I never ever consciously written anything for that song. And what I mean by that is that maybe I'm channeling something not of this world, or something that is. I, and that's the thing, I play guitar, but at the same time, when it comes to songwriting, there are times where I've just completely blacked out and something's been done. Like I'll just kind of like serve. I'll lend myself to be a vessel for the
And you'll
music.
just let it. And you'll just let it happen.
Exactly. And I don't think there was ever a conscious second where I wrote a guitar part for Dados. I feel like I was being possessed by something. And playing that song live, I like to wear a mask for that reason. I like to play dress up when we play live. So just kind of like reflecting on kind of like the possession element of that song. And it's actually our heaviest song that we've ever written. Um, it's yeah. So that's a fun one to play live.
It's a song that brings the energy. I'm about it. I'll have to.
Oh yeah.
Somebody will have to get video of that. I don't know. If this will be going out after the release, so
Hmm.
we'll see. Who knows?
Hmm.
I mean, maybe you'll just have to come out to the East Coast. I feel like that's
That's
that.
in the works. It's in
Oh
the
well,
it's in the
okay.
works.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna count the chickens before they hatch, but I feel like that. Now it's on the internet, so like if you don't,
Exactly.
you're held to a high standard. If anything, I know because I've been doing it for 4 years now, and people have been like, "Oh man, you said this on day one." But
Mhm.
the next thing, Max, obviously got to keep it more current. Who have you been jamming recently? What's on your Spotify? What have you been listening to lately?
Oh boy. So one, I want to give a shout out to another LA band that we've been really fortunate enough to play with. We played like 3 or 4 shows with them in a
Mm-hmm.
row. This band called Heptagon, and they have like this really cool RX Bandits, um, like minus the bear sort of vibe.
Oh, okay.
They do like a really interesting dual guitar thing. Speaking about Block Party, but it's it's like one of those things where just like it's very much like a call and response and like harmonizing, and it's really cool. And I think Jonathan and company write really profound lyrics and vocal melodies. So I have to absolutely give them a shout out right now. Um, as far as what I've been listening to lately, it's funny because like as a guitar player, I'm always trying to like learn and do new things. And for the longest time, I was kind of opposed to extended range guitars. Like I don't need 8 or 9 strings until I heard Ando-san. I don't know if you're familiar, but
Yeah.
Ando-san is it's like prog hop, if anything.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
really cool, like Animals as leaders guitar lines, but with like hip hop beats, and it's really chill and cool. And I love this on Corduroy, and I've been listening to his most recent record, Scheme and Season, that had just come out. Um, and then been my uncle showed me this band called the Helicopters, as
Okay.
in like Hella, as in like Hella. Helicopters. They're a Swedish band, and they are just like uncompromisingly rock and roll. Like it is
Okay.
like rock at its purest form. Like you can definitely hear like the Led Zeppelin influences, but it's definitely like its own thing. Like it's just no bullshit. Like I'm gonna go to the bar. I'm gonna go to like a dingy sort of like hole in the wall bar. Exactly. Just
Yeah.
let pulse through Marshalls, like rock and roll. Really good. I've also been listening to Rush.
Yes.
R.I.P. Neil Peart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, that's such a loss. He was such an erudite of a man, a brilliant thinker. He lyrics and everything like
Yeah.
that's such a huge bummer. So I've been listening to Subdivisions a lot, by Rush, because I feel like anyone that's ever kind of been like the nerd or geek in high school, like that song was like what, written in 1980 something, but it's something that's still very much relatable. And of course, they can go on their weird prog odysseys as well, in addition to making
Yeah.
incredibly relatable stuff. Um, Hip hop wise, I know we talked about this last time. I've actually
Yes.
been getting really into British hip hop, like the grime scene
Oh,
over there.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
Like like Skepta.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Yeah, Skepta's good.
he, yeah, he. It's funny because like it's I definitely don't consider myself like a huge. I have a bit of a blind spot for hip hop. You know, I grew up as more of like a rock guy, but
Yeah,
as I've
sure.
gotten older, I try to appreciate all the music and just like there's a lot of like kind of like British slang there, but there's also like a lot of uncompromising beef. Like those guys go hard. They go
Yes.
so tough, and um, not to get political or anything, but the UK definitely doesn't have the gun issues that the United States does. So just like the rappers over there, they can't hide behind a gun. So like those guys go really really hard with their lyrics, and even in person, like
Yeah.
Skepta will show up to like someone he's beefing with like at his show and go on stage, and it's like that's awesome. And then I think lastly, I've been bumping Kelmiko, which is a Japanese band.
Okay.
They did the recent anime opening to a show called "Keep Your Hands Off Aizoken." I think I'm
Okay.
pronouncing that right. But the song is called "Easy Breezy," and it opens with this really really cool like slide guitar. Just like,
Oh,
how are they
okay.
doing that? So yeah.
I'm about that. I feel like for me, like hip hop, like has been an uncharted territory for me. Like I've always appreciated it. Like lyricism is just like top. Like some people obviously are not great, and I'm not gonna name them, but like I feel like there's even with rock, there's like goods and bads to any sort of
Mhm.
genre. But I feel like I feel like for myself, like I've been getting into like a lot of like lo-fi and like stuff that's like a little bit more like melodic and chill, but like there's still some like I don't know. There's this like this underlying level of like mystery to how they do stuff, especially like in
Right.
lo-fi. Like you hear all this like twinkly, like real effect laden stuff, and I always think to myself like, I just want to see I just want to see the session. I just want to see all the session, and there being like 90 tracks on that session, and then they got to decompress all that stuff. They got to mix it. They got to master it, or they don't do any of that, and they just leave it at the normal thing. But like I've been finding myself like you said, getting into more like hip hop, trip hop, like all that like interesting stuff that I probably would have laughed at myself when I initially started the channel to listen to. So
Hey, music is music, and I really admire Quentin Tarantino because in addition to like just the amazing works that he does in
sure.
directing, he watches everything. Like he immerses himself in his medium, and I feel like that's if you're gonna be creative or someone who outputs like creative content, I feel like I don't want to say it's a necessity, but I think you will be better off for it if you immerse yourself in your medium and just listen to everything. So like Quentin Tarantino watches everything from like Sharknado to like the most highbrow like art house sort of like film ever.
Yeah.
And I don't consider myself too proud of a person to not listen to the Hot 100 pop to like the most obscure sort of like noise sort of thing coming out of like a basement in
Yeah.
Brooklyn sort of thing. So I think immersing yourself in genres and just like listening to music and listening to like what the medium has to provide, you'll be a better, or at least have a better understanding of how music might work and how you can contribute to the big spectrum of sound.
I think you're just more well-rounded of a musician. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
you can do that. Like I mean, if somebody wants to send me some good country artists, like actually legit good country artists, like send them to me because I can't stand that crap sometimes. Like that is probably the one genre that I need to find somebody that's like real damn good at what they do. Just like whether it be like lyrically, like instrumentally, whatever it may be, I need a good country artist that I could be like that could sway me to be like, maybe I'll give it a listen. I kind of like, jump the gun a little bit,
So it's funny you bring that up because I do have a recommendation for you.
Ooh,
Um, I would check out Sturgill Simpson's latest record.
okay.
Um, it's funny because you put up like an accompanying anime on Netflix for this record, but it's not country in the way you might think. And I think it's a kind of like a good gateway drug into
Okay.
country a little bit because his older stuff is definitely more like
Like country.
acoustic guitar, yeah, country. but this is more kind of like country in the way, in like almost like a Queens of the Stone Age kind of vibe. Like there's a lot of synths, there's electric guitars. It sounds like rock and roll, but it's still very very much country. So I would definitely listen to Sturgill Simpson's latest record, and I think the single that came out for that is a bop. It's definitely very very dancey, and I think that might be a good way, at least to kind of get yourself into the genre. But
There we go.
that
Well,
yeah.
post Brandon in this interview will be putting some text on the screen to see if it's this is a bop, certified bop from Brandon's stamp of approval from Audio Addiction, or it's nah, don't listen. I wouldn't say that. I would say like you
Right.
listen to it, you give your own thing about it. I'm just gonna say if I liked it or not, and you guys can go listen to it. But the next thing, Max, another fun question. You know, I always got those.
Yeah.
If you could compile a musical supergroup, who'd be in your band?
Wait, is this a band that I would be in, or like I
I
have to
mean, if
compile
it,
any?
I feel like people interpret it a little bit differently. So, if you want to be in the band, you can do it, or if you want to create a musical supergroup, and that would be just like just a magical band, then you can do it that way.
Okay,
Whatever path you choose.
I'll start with the latter, um, and say on drums, John Bonham,
Oh, okay,
on
classic.
bass, John Paul Jones,
I'm
on
noticing a
guitar,
trend.
Jimmy Page,
Oh, I thought you were gonna
and
say
on
another John.
vocals, Robert Plant. You
Ooh,
know, there was actually a British poll that they did where just like for like who would you want to most see in like a supergroup, and you can only vote by specific member, and it just came back as Led Zeppelin. So just um, oh Jesus, supergroups. That's a tough one. Like a legitimate answer. It's interesting that you bring up the word supergroup because there's a swan. There's a scene that we're kind of familiar with, the Blue Swan scene, and I feel like a lot of what they're doing, you could argue, is that
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of the bands in
Like
those scenes are.
Royal Coda at this point is
Yeah,
a supergroup essentially.
yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You know, I think it's hard for me to kind of like think of a group as a super group and just kind of think it as a group that just happens to have members from other successful, or like,
Bands. Yeah.
bands. Um, so you know what? Let's get weird. All right, so I'll say on guitar, we'll do Jimmy Page. We'll keep that. We'll
Okay,
keep that.
that's
He's my all-time favorite.
the rock.
We say Herbie Hancock on
Ooh.
piano.
Okay. I'm feeling this. This is going somewhere.
We'll say uh, Noel Redding, who's the bass player for Jimi Hendrix. We'll say
Ooh.
him on
Okay.
bass. Um, we'll say Stuart Copeland on drums.
Ooh. Okay. Interesting. I like that pick though.
Um, we will get say Miles Davis on trumpet and
Ooh.
whatever else you might want to be on. And vocals, Brandon Boyd. Let's get real weird. So
Ooh. Yeah.
yeah, so
That's out there.
yeah, so Brandon Boyd on vocals, Jimmy Page on guitar, Herbie Hancock on keys, Stuart Copeland on drums, and then Miles Davis on whatever he wants to be. So I think that would be. Did I just describe all systems? No, just kidding.
It's pretty close. I feel like it's
Is that
you picked a very eclectic group of individuals. So I'm always curious to see how inventive people get. So I always like asking that. And then some people just don't even know the band name, like members in the bands themselves.
mhm,
So I don't want to give them any discredit. I feel like they're still tight regardless. But
right.
the next question, Max, is another heavily weighted question. If there was one album that you wished that you wrote, what album would it be?
Oh boy, that's a good one. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Um,
They didn't say it was going to be easier the second time around.
oh man. I will say I'll take two approaches to this. I'll
Okay.
say the record I wish I wrote lyrically, and then the record I wish I wrote musically.
Okay, I like this.
And the record I wish I wrote lyrically would probably be Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures.
Oh, okay, okay.
As kind of stereotypical or cliche of an answer that might be, I think Ian Curtis, God bless him, for his short time on this planet, he was able to really bare his soul, and I think a lot of the subject matter and stuff that he talks about is something everyone that can really, really relate to. In addition, just inspiring people, it's just some kind of something that people kind of go through, whether it's mental health or depression or
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. I think Unknown Pledges really kind of touches on that sort of part of our brain, and so lyrically, I wish I could write like Ian Curtis did. Musically, I'm gonna say, oh gee, this is tough.
This one's a hard.
I'm
I
gonna
know it's
go.
hard.
Yeah, I'm gonna go like, all right. As a guitar player, I'm gonna go in two directions, and one I will say, Deftones Around the Fur.
Oh yeah,
Um, I think there's, for contextually in the early 2000s, when new metal was kind of really a thing. I think
yeah,
Deftones really made a name for themselves with that record and kind of doing something a little bit more melodic. And there's just a lot of, again, vulnerability that they put in their music, and
sure,
not to
yeah,
mention that I would. You can, all the stuff that's happening right now with like 8 or 9 string guitars and just that kind of like gent scene, you can kind of trace back to either Deftones or Meshuggah.
yeah, 100%.
I love both bands, but Deftones and that record especially kind of wins out.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, I'm again kind of noticing a trend here with Jimmy Page, is I'll probably say Led Zeppelin 1. I think Led
Oh
Zeppelin 1 is kind of one, in addition to just being a masterpiece of a record. It's just masterwork of guitar. It's the guitarist's guitar record. So
oh, I like those.
those are my answers. That was a tough question.
I know it is. I know it is because every time I ask it, because I almost not. I feel like I haven't. People haven't asked it recently, but I know people have asked me what my favorite is, and for semblance, I try to keep to the same answer, which is, um, I would say if I can remember it, because I know I said it a million times. It is I the Mighty Satori. That is
Ooh.
that is my by far my favorite. I mean, obviously I had the lovely pleasure of interviewing them last year, and it's one to cross off my bucket list of things that I've always wanted to do. But that record, I can't tell you how many times I've listened to it, how many times I've probably cried listening to it because I'm like, damn, this is so good, like lyrically and like musically. But I think honestly, their whole discography is like some. Even if they weren't my favorite band, I'd still be like, their discography is just so it has so much variety in it that I couldn't live without them. But
Is,
I what were you gonna say?
is that the record that Pet Names is on?
No,
Or
that
no?
is Where the Mind Wants to Go, Where You Let It Go. That's their most recent record.
Gotcha. I do
But that
love
one's
that
also
song.
very good too.
Yeah.
But I do have a
That,
band. I do have a band for you to check out since you did mention Deftones. There's
mhm.
this sick band coming out of the UK. They are called Loathe, and they released a track called
Hmm.
Two Way Mirror, which is very reminiscent of like Deftones. I feel like it's kind of closer to like White Pony, like Diamond Eyes kind of era Deftones, but they like their stuff rips. So if you guys are watching this and you like more like ethereal metal music, go check them out. They're like fantastic, and they've been flying under the radar for like God knows how long, but gotta give them some love. But the last thing, Max, the most important thing, obviously, tell them about your band. You have a new record which is out now, and anything coming up in the next couple months.
That's it. Record's not out yet.
Well,
Singles,
I mean,
singles.
it's out. It's
Yeah.
out. It's out. Out in internet terminology, it
Yes,
is
yes,
out.
yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
It is. It has been.
not today. As of recording, it is not out. But as of internet video timeline, it has been out.
The torches have been lit.
Yes,
So I play in a band called All Systems No. All Systems No is a five-piece rock band, prog rock,
prog
alternative
rock.
prog rock.
I would say prog rock. Yeah.
Yeah, prog rock band out of Los Angeles, California. It's guitars, vocals, drums, bass, sax, and we have a new record coming out It's out on January 24th called Input Output. A single is out now called Zenden, and I think you might dig it. We're trying to plan a tour, a West Coast tour right now in for the summer, hopefully going up as far north as Vancouver and as far south as San Diego, maybe even Tijuana. You never know. Um, and then hopefully a small East Coast run at the end of the year. But just trying to play out as much as possible. Get our names and music into as many ears as possible, and just kind of we appreciate anyone that listens. I appreciate you for having me on again. So
Max. I'd love always welcome back. When you're, I want to copyright Olive Garden, but when you hear your family, so go. I feel like I'm definitely gonna get copyrighted for using Olive Garden's slogan on. If you listen to Olive Garden, if you want to sponsor me, that'd be totally cool. I'll be more than glad to talk about your all-you-can-eat buffet, where you can get lovely Italian dishes for the low price of. I'm not gonna go into it anyway. Max, go check out All System No. The links are in the description. The album is not out I mean, it is out. It is out now. Currently, not currently. It is out in terms of internet terminology. So go check it out. There will be a link in the bio for that as well. And if you enjoy this interview, share it, like it, subscribe. It goes a long way. And of course, thanks to the major homie Max for coming back on and chatting again.
Thank you, Brandon. Your work is very much appreciated, because I know I'm not the only person that has gone through all of your videos and just listening to interviews and just kind of being like, oh man, there's some really really interesting music just kind of coming out of everywhere. And the one thing I will say about music, and I know Josh Homme has said it too, is just like, show me a new band and I'll show you 5 people willing to die for it. So I'm one of the 5 that would be willing to die for your content. So
thank you. Oh my god, my heart is so full. But go check out Max's band. Expect a review out very soon. Well, I mean, it will already be out, but you should go check that out when it comes out too, when this video comes out. So go check all that stuff, and guys, we'll be talking soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com, and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.